Hi guys, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the Dragy. So you might be familiar with the Dragy, you might not be familiar with the Dragy. Basically what the Dragy is it is a small GPS-based performance monitor that you can use to monitor 0 to 60, quarter mile, eighth mile, 1 mile, all kinds of different times in your vehicles. It has been certified by many authorities to be very accurate, and they're relatively inexpensive. About $139 for a Dragy. There's no like licensing costs or monthly subscription or anything like that that you have to pay to use it. It's just you buy the unit, you download the free app, and then you can use it for monitoring or testing an unlimited number of vehicles. So this is what the Dragy looks like. It's a small unit just like this. It's got a USB or micro USB connection on the end of it. It comes with a micro USB to USB cable, so you power it through USB. I purchased mine from Burger Motorsports, and they give you this nice mounting plate for it, which has suction cups on it. Otherwise, the unit is magnetic, so you can stick it to something that is metallic. I like this because I can kind of stick it right to my windshield or right to any of the like piano black surfaces in my car. It sticks to very nicely, and it works very well. So why would you want something like this? Well, you know, a lot of us car enthusiasts or tuners or whatever you want to call us, we like to buy parts. We like to put different parts on our car, and we like to think that they're adding performance or hope that they're adding performance. A lot of manufacturers say that things add up to 5 horsepower, up to 10 horsepower, up to whatever. But you really, unless you have access to a dyno or you have a dyno in your garage, it's really difficult to see those performance claims and see how they actually affect performance. So a lot of people will say, my butt dyno feels like it's faster. Well, this is kind of a way that you can actually see if something is faster. Obviously, a lot of things go into play when you're talking about testing performance back to back. Things like ambient temperature, the amount of fuel or weight in the vehicle, the conditions, wetness, humidity, all of that, especially on turbocharged vehicles, can have an effect on the amount of performance that the vehicles have and the amount of power and output that the vehicles have. But you would have that same problem with a dyno as well. They try to replicate similar circumstances again and again, but you can't always do that. So for me, the reason I picked up the Dragy is because I want to be able to do things like I want to buy a piggyback computer for the mini Clubman, like a JB4 or a Dinan, and I want to be able to test before and after. And then a lot of those computers have multiple performance profiles. There's like settings 1 through 7 on the Dinan, for example. Well, I like to see the difference between setting 0, setting 1, setting 2, setting 3, setting 4, and how it actually affects the performance of the car. And with some of those installations, the installation takes very little time, so you can actually test the car stock, do the install quickly, and then test the car again and have pretty similar environmental conditions between test after test. Obviously, you want to have the car up to operating temperature in order to test accurately. You want to make sure that you're not doing run after run after run after run and having heat soak in the vehicle. But this allows us to test things like tires even. My mini F56 here behind me, my JCW coupe, that has hand-cooked tires on it, and I like hand-cooked tires. They work very well, but I'm going to replace those with Michelin Pilot Sport 4s when it comes time to replace them. And the Dragy will allow me to do something like I can do a quarter-mile pull on the stock tires and on the Michelin Pilot Sports and see if the stickier tires actually equate to a better time with a manual transmission vehicle that has traction control and will potentially spin the tires into third gear pretty easily. With something like the Clubman that is 4-wheel drive, realistically, all of the power that the car has, I can put down. It has Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, they're 235 width, and they're super sticky, and it's a 4-wheel drive car. So for that, it's more about testing performance parts. If I do an intake, does it actually improve performance? If I do a tuner, does it actually improve performance? And see what those numbers actually end up being. Also, it's just kind of fun. I tested all of the cars at our house except for the Clubman so far. And the times are actually really interesting. So for example, Eric's Civic, our 92 Civic DX, does a 17.88 second quarter mile at 78.5 miles per hour. Its 0 to 60 time is 10.89 seconds. The next slowest vehicle that we have is our 2021 Honda Passport, which is obviously an SUV, but it's four-wheel drive and it's 300 horsepower. So that car did a 15.2 second quarter mile at 89 miles an hour and had a 0 to 60 time of 6.9 seconds. My F56 Mini Cooper here, which is a front-wheel drive vehicle and a manual transmission, did a 7-second 0 to 60, 7.07, with a quarter mile time of 14.69. So that's actually really interesting. It was slower to 60 miles an hour than the Passport was, because the Passport's four-wheel drive and it's got a ZF transmission in it. This, because it's a manual and it's front-wheel drive, really doesn't put the power down very well until you're high into second gear or early into third gear. So what we see is that the 0 to 60 is slower on this car by about a second, but the quarter mile is faster by 0.6 of a second, and the car's going another 13 miles an hour faster at the end of the quarter mile. Really interesting. The Mercedes-Benz SLC 300, that's a 250 horsepower rear-wheel drive vehicle with an automatic transmission. That car did a 6.03 0 to 60, and it had a quarter mile time of 14.29 seconds at 97 miles an hour. So the Mini is going faster at the end of the quarter mile, but the SLC with rear-wheel drive and an automatic transmission puts the power down early so much better that it actually still beats the car in the quarter mile. But if we went a longer distance, it stands to reason that the Mini is building speed faster and therefore would probably be the fastest in like a half mile. I didn't do any half mile runs. So I'm going to show you how the app works, and we're going to do an actual test in the Clubman today. So here you can see the Dragy. Like I mentioned, it has suction cups, so I can just stick it to this piano black interior trim. You can also put it on the windshield or something like that, but the cord that it comes with is short, so I'm just doing it like that. I've got it plugged into the USB port that's already here in the Mini Clubman. Now the Clubman is almost out of gas, so I'm gonna go take it for some gas. We're gonna get it warmed up, and then we'll do the test. When you open the Dragy app and click the connect button, it's going to connect via Bluetooth to the Dragy directly. It will then start to look for satellites. So at first it says low sats, then it does this loading where it starts looking for satellite data. And this takes a couple of seconds to complete, but once it's done, it starts connecting to satellites. Once it's found the satellites, it will start displaying your current speed and other information. So here is the first 0 to 60 pull in the Mini Clubman. We can see that we got a 0 to 30, 0 to 60, 5.96 seconds, and then an eighth mile at 9.17, and a quarter mile at 13.96. You can see the actual speed as I slow down. And after this, I attempted to do a couple more pulls. So here we have pull number 2. And you'll notice that I did a slightly better 0 to 60 time on pull number 2. I actually got a 5.79 second 0 to 60. But you'll also notice that it does not say verified. So when we click on the arrow to see why it's not verified, it gives us some additional information. And the Dragy actually said that this was an invalid test result because I had a negative 1% slope because there was an elevation change that was negative near the end of the 0 to 60. So it said that this isn't an accurate result, which means that I can't count it. Here is pull number 3.
We see a 0 to 30 come up first at 2.60 seconds, then a 0 to 60 at 5.94. This was my best 0 to 60 time that I was able to record with a verified score. The best non-verified was a 5.45, which had a slight decline. And this shows a 15.16 second quarter mile, but I was off of the throttle after the 60 mile per hour pull. So my best quarter mile time is the first one that we did at 13.96 seconds. Here on the history page, we can see our best 0 to 60 time of 5.94 seconds. We changed the name to Clubman so that that will be stored in our history. And then we can go to the quarter mile and we can see our quarter mile run of 13.96 at 103.27 miles per hour in position number 4.
As you can see, first off, it's really easy to use. Works very well. It gives you the verified or invalid status after you do a run. And the invalid status could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe it has too few satellites. In my case, when I did one of my runs, I had a downward slope and it saw that the grade was a -1%. You can do a pull uphill and it will validate that, but you cannot do a pull downhill and expect it to validate that because it's technically cheating. So the Clubman, as expected, ended up being the fastest vehicle that we own. It did a 5.94, 0 to 60 was its best time. And its quarter mile was a 13.96 at 103.27 miles per hour. So that means that at the end of the quarter, not only did it get there the fastest, but it's also going the fastest of any vehicle that I have. That being said, it is interesting that the Clubman takes 13.96 to do a quarter. My John Cooper Works Coupe takes 14.69, and the difference in speed is only 1 mile per hour from 102 to 103. So, mathematically thinking through that, it is likely that this car is actually pulling harder once it finds traction, but the Clubman, because it has an infinite amount of traction, or almost infinite amount of traction between the Michelin Pilot Sport 4s and the all-wheel drive, it's able to so significantly pull harder off the line than this one can, that again, this just can't make up the gap in between. But again, going out to longer distances, this would likely eventually overtake the Clubman, which is really interesting. So in the future, we're going to use the Dragy to do a bunch of different things. It can even do 60 to 0. You maybe saw that on the screen. I didn't do any tests with that today, but it does do 60 to 0 as well. So something like changing your brakes, you can do a 60 to 0 test and you can see that, oh, I actually did improve braking performance. And maybe you can test fade by doing 10 back-to-back 60 to 0 stops and seeing the time that it takes you to do the last one on stock brakes versus aftermarket brakes, and see the performance that you're getting out of something like a slotted or drilled vented rotor. I think that just given the lack of expense that this thing has, it's probably a valuable tool for almost any enthusiast to be able to just do something like change out an air intake and see, did it actually make any sort of measurable difference? And yes, I realize the numbers can be skewed by a variety of factors, but what I found is that it's pretty easy to repeat, especially in four-wheel drive cars, to repeat the same runs back to back to back to back and be very, very close in your numbers. And, honestly, a air intake probably won't make much of a difference in a quarter mile because 5 horsepower, if it makes that, isn't going to make a huge difference in a quarter mile. But something like tires definitely could. Something like brakes would be really cool to measure. Something like a tune, I'm interested in measuring as well. This car has always been tuned since I got the Dragy. I haven't had a chance to check it stock, and in order to do that, I have to pull the ECM and have it reflashed as an OEM tune. But the next time that I go to get it smogged, I can check this as a tuned car Then when I return it to stock for the smog, I can check it as a non-tuned car. With the Clubman, when I install the piggyback, because I'm going to do a piggyback instead of a full flash tune in the Clubman, I will be able to test before and after that modification and see, does it make a difference? And we can play around with other things as well, like an air intake or an exhaust, and see if those make a performance difference. I'm going to put a link in the description to the Dragy. Check it out and let me know what you think. One of the things that I used it for, which I found funny, is, Eric was convinced that his Civic is faster than the Passport and the Mazda 3, but both of those cars are a pretty significant amount faster than his Civic. So it's interesting as a driver. It's easy to perceive, like they have this saying around, it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than it is to drive a fast car slow, right? That Civic doing 70 miles an hour feels a little crazy because it's kind of a rattle box and it's just chaotic, right? And then something like the Mercedes or the Clubman, which are, 4,000 pounds and German and thick metal and lots of noise dampening and smooth ride, those at 100 feel like they're barely breathing. It's a different experience. So when you're going from vehicle to vehicle to vehicle, the butt dyno isn't very accurate. It can be proven inaccurate in a lot of scenarios. So being able to just tie numbers, have the same driver in two different vehicles and have them compare those two back to back and see what their experience is like, to be able to compare across drivers in the same vehicle, like my manual F56, can somebody get a better 0 to 60 time out of this than I do? Probably. I tried it with both, traction control on and traction control off. I did better with traction control off because traction control limits your power when you start having wheel spin. And I tried doing a pull starting in second instead of starting it in first, because I can still roast the tires in second gear. And, either way, I wasn't really able to beat that number. So I have what I feel is the best that I can personally do in that vehicle, in the circumstances that I was testing it, in the temperature and the conditions and the tires, etc. And I honestly think that swapping out the tires for a new set, because these are getting pretty bald, they're almost down to the wear bars. They probably have 30 seconds left, something like that. So going to a set of Pilot Sport 4s or Cup 2s or something like that, a stickier tire that is maybe a little bit wider of a profile, would be an interesting thing to test and to see how the numbers change. So anyway, I thank you for watching today. If you do click the links in my description, those are affiliate links, and that doesn't cost you any more money to buy the things that I'm talking about, but it does give me a small kickback, which helps me to fund my channel, which operates at a loss. So if you do choose to do that, I thank you for it. And if you don't, then that's fine too. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a great day.